Rattled. Definitely starting this podcast off rattled was the word you used when we were talking beforehand. And it's the second time in my life I've gotten a Tiger text from Middlecoff, and it was dramatic. So recording this on Tuesday afternoon and just kind of waiting on Tiger.
Yeah, I mean, typically we record the podcast a little earlier than we are today, and I was doing something in the kitchen, and I looked down at my phone, and I got the TMZ, the tweet or the link to the article on a group text I'm on, and I looked at it, and my first inclination was not to believe it. Think it was like, no, I just saw, because I had been earlier today, a couple hours before, I had seen on Instagram Dwayne Wade had posted they were playing golf. And I'm like, no, he's playing golf with Dwayne Wade right now. He's not in a car accident. I literally just saw him. Turns out that was yesterday. Then I started getting a couple texts, and then you realize it's actually real. This was in real time. I mean, this is not even 1 o'clock as we're recording this. And then more and more information come out about this guy's car. And you're just thinking, oh my God, Tiger Woods was legitimately, this is not fake. And not that I believe TMZ. The second time they broke his story back in 2009. They broke the story here that he was in pretty bad fucking shape.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else.
No, as we record this, the stuff here, you hope, by the time you watch this or hear this, maybe you already know. Hopefully we don't, we kind of have some details, and then it turns out he's okay. But the reports I saw, I think KTVU reported compound fractures in his leg. They needed the jaws of life. The pictures, the videos of his car, just badly damaged, have been out there.
That's a jarring image, the car
the
video.
First thing you think, right, there's like 7 minutes where there's no information other than he's been jaws of life to the hospital. And you go, is he gonna live? And then you start reading the stuff, and I don't know about you, my first thought was, is he gonna walk?
Yeah.
So this is, again, we're talking about this as it's happening. This is us just talking the way we talk anyway. We don't know. And it's just, I mean, there are a few people, right, in our world, just in this country, that just stop everything. Like, you started flipping channels. Is every news channel that you flipped?
Every news channel, golf channel, I mean, everything was all over it. So I know for me, Guy, I was thinking about this before we started the podcast, is that this year has been just, I think naturally, maybe some people enjoyed it for sure. I don't know. I find myself getting really angry at different times, just the way everything's set up and you're not allowed to do anything and just the whole situation. And one thing I found myself, and part of it was like when sports reopened up, we got really heavy into DraftKings golf. And I think like I really got involved in following, and Tiger's like my favorite athlete, but just involved in golf, of consuming the PGA Tour. I found myself watching an outrageous amount of Tiger content. I'm not even talking about like the documentary. I'm talking about like on YouTube, watching his events in his life and going, geez, I just watched a ton of it. I mean, we had a ton of time on our hands. And it's one of the lone bright spots when I think of 2020, that I just kind of made me happy, in this world where you're kind of stuck. You can't do anything. You get on social media. There's so much negativity. It's easy, in this world that like what we do for a living to kind of get consumed by it. And I'm not good at, it's not like I don't have kids I can go play with or anything. You're kind of just stuck in it sometimes, I feel. And Tiger was like a bright light of just going back into his career. Because like the peak of his career was, you and I was born in 84, you were born in 85, like 97, I was fucking 13 years old. So it's like you think you remember? Like I remember 08 when he won the US Open. But like peak Tiger, when you hear PGA Tour guys talk about it, they're talking like 97 to like 03, 04, when he was just eviscerating people, like just in a completely different stratosphere than everyone else. And he still was in 08, but remember his body was kind of breaking down by then. Obviously, he broke. And you'd watch him go, oh my God. Like I watched Tom Brady's career, like in my adult life. Like I know I could speak to it. Even Jordan, you think you did, and then you watch that documentary, like, fuck, God, this guy was, obviously he was sweet and you knew it, but you just kind of rehash it. The Tiger thing, I just think he's a one-off athlete. I say this all the time. Michael and Tiger are the most famous athletes in my life. I don't even think there's close seconds, because part of it is like their fame. It's like the fame of Michael Jackson or some of these guys before we were even born. To get that famous without the internet is stupid fame. Like it's like we got TikTok guys. Portnoy does a podcast with a TikTok guy that has like, 50 million followers. Like that, you can get famous now in different ways, right? Are they going to maintain their fame over 50 years? Probably not. I'm not saying Dave. I'm talking about the TikTok guys. And it just goes like there's a level of Tiger. And what made like Michael Jordan played basketball, right? Most human beings, if you're a kid, even if you're not an athlete, you end up playing basketball at one point in time in your life, right? Pick up or shoot hoops. Like most people have shot basketballs, right? Or
Yeah.
dribbled a basketball.
Yeah.
I think most people probably, maybe since Tiger maybe tried golf, but golf was Michael Jackson. Everyone fucking listened to music. Tiger did something that the majority of human beings did not do. And I would say the majority of people in a weird way probably looked down upon it forever. And he changed the game and made it really cool. And it was something like I played golf growing up. And it wasn't cool. I remember I always wanted to play football more, even though it's like, fuck, Middlecoff, you barely play on your high school team. You're never going anywhere. You should just play golf only. But it just
I
like
didn't play golf. I didn't even know we had a high school golf team at Davis High. You were on it.
You did. You wrote an article on Ben Hunter. Remember?
Well, I mean, like, I'm being casual here, but like there was a point in time where it wasn't really something you were. I mean, I knew we had a team. You were on the team, so I was aware of it. And Ben Hunter was really good, but, yeah, it was.
It was not cool.
It was
like,
not
even,
something.
and that was like early Tiger.
Yeah, no one was talking about like, oh, did you see Tiger this weekend? That conversation never happened on Monday morning.
It's way cooler now.
Yeah,
would you agree?
Because of him, yes. Way cooler now.
But just like I just think casual people now, like obviously during Corona it's expanded, but just people play golf. People just kind of pay attention, and I just think he's a one-off. Like LeBron James is not a one-off. It's just he and I'm not diminishing him, but I'm just saying he benefited
he
from
came to
Magic,
fame
Michael,
at a different
Kobe.
time.
Yeah, it's just Tiger. No one playing golf right now to me will ever sniff. I'm talking about the crew of like famous guys right now on the tour that are killing it and are great players, and probably, I mean, there's probably 10 guys that are going to go down as like all-time greats, right? Like DJ, JT, Rory, Spieth, fucking maybe Bryson, Koepka. You could combine all their fame and they would never get to a quarter of what Tiger is, right? That's what he meant to the sport. And you hear, we talked to Hunter Mahan, but you talk to some of the guys that Pat Perez has been open about this, like Tiger made us money. Like there wasn't money like this. The purse this weekend is over $10 million. It might as well just be called the Tiger Woods purse.
I mean,
WGC
Max just won $1.6 million at the Genesis.
Like what Jack and even like Greg Norman and Faldo were making pre-Tiger was pennies relative to these guys.
Yeah.
Everyone now is a millionaire. Like Jason Kokrak make a couple $1 million a year. But to me, it's just my point is that I remember thinking it was such a crazy story in 2008, and he was probably my favorite athlete, and it was nuts. But now it's like as you see guys get older and you kind of live through the highs and the lows of their life as a fan, and I think you're kind of similar. I'm kind of numb to sports in a weird way. Like when I see some of these guys like on social media that are huge fans still, like I can't totally relate. And I used to be that, and it just kind of left me. I'm still a fan of sports, but Tiger's one guy I remember when he won the Masters, I got pretty emotional. I mean, I just remember that being an emotional moment.
Well,
remember
the montage of his dad to his son was, you could not cry. I know I did too.
It was just a powerful, but I just remember him going to like that, like 17 and 18 and like, God, he's going to fucking win the Masters. And then, yeah, you're right. But that 5 minutes after where Jim goes silent, and he hugs them all, and they're walking. Remember when walking down that stretch with Charlie? And Charlie, even a couple years ago, felt a little smaller than he is now. And he's just wearing what 8, 9-year-old would wear, basketball shorts, T-shirt, obviously Nike, but just walking with his dad. And it was just that moment for me as a sports fan. Like even Brady win it this year. Like I got to witness his whole career. I worked in the NFL. Like we played Brady. I've seen him live multiple times. It was cool, but it like didn't move me, right? I mean, hell, I was kind of rooting for the other team, but that was in my lifetime. That's one of the most moving sports moments and powerful sports moments. And he's the only one that truly like that. I just remember seeing like everyone, whether you're into politics, whether you're into football, like that was just, he had that universal pull. at a sport that shouldn't, right? Of course football does, or baseball does, or basketball does. They always kind of have,
Well, he
right?
became bigger than the sport, but I think the other thing that he's had is the lows that he has returned from. They don't compare on a star of his level, and the degree to which his star had fallen, and then what he did to get back, and the multiple things that went wrong. Right? It's not just the scandal. It's not just the first car crash. It's not just the back surgeries. It's repeated back surgeries. It's woman after woman. It's all the it's the relationship with his dad. It's all of this stuff that was so low that made the return so high, right? Like Tom's career is incredible, Brady's in and of itself, but his public valleys were not anywhere close. It's not just that Tiger failed or that Tiger got hurt. I mean, we were talking about like basic human emotions, right? Like deep, like shame. Like these are things that it's the story that he has is so unusual.
And sorry,
No,
sorry.
I was going to transition to something today, so comment on that first.
Well, think about this too. What makes I think Tiger so unique is like Tom Brady, like his parents. If you ask I would say even a above average casual sports fan, like an NFL fan, about like Mr. Brady, be like, I don't know any. Like, what do you mean, Tom Brady's dad, like Tom Brady Sr.? I remember he got kind of mad once, like they wouldn't. You say Earl Woods to a casual, like, wouldn't you say he would immediately evoke emotion and someone has an opinion? Like, we know this guy's life. You don't even need to read the documentary or watch the documentary or read the book. Like, I'd say Earl Woods is like a powerful public figure. We feel like we've known this fucking guy. I mean, and part of his story, right, was him going on television at 2. Like, just his life has been, Tom's life is an NFL life. Tiger's life was like his life, guy, his life. Phil Knight in that documentary, I didn't know this. I think we had talked about this when he was following him his last U.S. Amateur, because followed him every round. And the way the U.S. Amateur works is like it's like March Madness. It's a bracket of 64 match play. You work your way to the championship. Phil followed him every round. And this is 1996 or 7. So Phil, I mean, Nike is enormous. MJ is by far the biggest athlete in the world. Phil's on fucking top. And I think it was clear, right, that it was like, even by then, I'd say most sports fans kind of knew this Tiger guy was coming. I mean, his name was fucking Tiger. And I feel like I'm talking about him like he's dead, but this does feel like a moment. No one knows what's going on, but just watch him at Riviera. He was openly talking about the back, like he was in bad shape. But then I watched him play with D Wade. I'm like, well, if he's playing golf, it must not be as bad, but maybe he really wasn't doing that much with those guys. He's just out there with them, right? It's hard to tell.
I mean, clearly from what he told Nance, he's adjusting to what his new life will have to be as a golfer. He was, right? He talked about it lengthening his putter so he doesn't have to bend over as far, so it's the same length as his wedge.
Well, the way he talked, like he wasn't going to be at the Masters here in a month and a half.
It felt like maybe we had, even before this car crash, like, maybe we'd seen the end of like truly competitive Tiger. I don't know. But I think part of what as just talking about it, I'm getting chills right this second just thinking about it. On Tuesday, like within the last hour, right, you're looking at these photos of his car crash. I do think part of it is him, everything we just said. Part of it is that we just had this big 2-part documentary that I watched, that you watched, that a lot of people watched, that brought all that stuff right back to the surface in terms of just it's all fresh in our minds, all of these things with Tiger. And then the other part of it, for me at least, looking at these photos, is it's a year ago that Kobe in L.A., photos of, now, that was a helicopter on fire, but the same kind of, it's got an L.A. helicopter shot, and it's like this not totally green grass in like this vegetated area, right? It's where Tiger crashed. It's not like big hillside like where Kobe crashed, but it's a little ravine and a little hill by some homes.
It doesn't feel like the Staples Center downtown L.A. or anything.
No,
right?
or if there had been a car crash just on like a residential street into like a palm tree. It's just
the picture doesn't even say, like, you wouldn't know California. You would just think kind of like back road, residential. I don't even know, right?
But we know it's California just because they say it's L.A. So then you see this close-up photo, and it's a car that went off the side down a hill. It's some of this. It looks from a terrain stamp. It just reminds me. It just has these things that, for whatever reason, remind you of Kobe. Partly that it was Kobe. Now Kobe died. That's not what we're. But that's just, again, in 24 hours or in a week, what we're saying now might feel totally out of place or dated, right? But right now, that's what we all just watched. And for me, it's not based on to go back to what you said about his interview with Nance.
But guy, even if he hadn't shattered his legs and being in surgery right now, if he would have walked away, the visuals of that picture, you would have been like, someone could have died. You know, like when you get into a bad car crash
Died, yeah.
and you hear the tow truck driver, or the police officer being like, this looks like you're lucky to walk away. Like you just see that image. To me, the first thing you think is he alive? Like to me, the image is a jarring image, whether it's Tiger Woods, whether it's, you don't, like you just said, hey, there's a horrific car crash in Los Angeles today, and they showed the picture. You'd be like, God, I hope the person is fucking alive.
Yeah, yeah.
And then to me, it's even more jarring, right? Once you kind of zoom in, it says the Genesis. It's just like, oh my God.
And like all the stuff is stacked up.
We got sent Genesis. You remember Collar Church by a guy in his foundation that was a big, I think, Niner Raider fan that listened to the podcast, and I wore it the other day.
I think the other part of it, though, is like because of what you said about how Tiger sounded with Nance the other day, you know, and we've been talking for years about, and certainly since even, you know, Pebble, and we've talked about like how much did he really have left? But when I saw those pictures, my thought was not, is Tiger going to play competitively again? Because remember, when Kobe died, a big part of the conversation, it was, yeah, Kobe was a great player, but it was more about like Kobe and his daughters and his daughter, right? She died. And Kobe's like next chapter and being, you know, all this stuff, the girl dad and all advancing basketball for women. And it was about like Kobe's next chapter.
Because she wanted to go to the WNBA really and people were acting like she was headed there.
So when I see this Tiger stuff, like I think part of it is we watched the doc. We just saw Tiger play in this father-son thing with Justin Thomas and his dad and his son Charlie. And my thought was not like, is Tiger going to play in the Masters? It was, is Tiger going to be able to play with his son? Like, is Tiger going to be able to? So that's where my head's at as we're looking at all that stuff. Is Tiger going to be able to, if Charlie's becomes an NCAA golfer, is he going to be able to walk with him? Is he going to be able to caddy for him? Is he? And again, maybe in 24 hours and in a week, Tiger, it turns out he's going to make a full recovery and none of this, and this is all just stuff we thought for 2 hours. I hope that's the case, but I don't know. I'm just, as we talk about like why it feels so rattling, I think those are some of the thoughts.
Well, because even if you go, okay, he's not life-threatening, he's going to be, you start going compound fractured, shattered legs. I think a guy that was already not being able to play because of back surgery, you go, is this guy ever going to really play competitive golf anymore? I think we were thinking that. It kind of went viral the moment he talked to Nance. We were like, God, he doesn't look great. It's just kind of the end. And again, golf, the end, it's not like you got to be like John Elway or Peyton Manning, I'm retiring, right? In golf, you can kind of, but it's like, is this guy's career? And we've talked about this for a while with the Masters. It was just going to be hard, not because we thought his back was going to get hurt again or he was going to get in a car accident. Like, how's he going to play with these young guys, right? And it was kind of clear that it was going to be very difficult. And before the back surgery and clearly the car accident, when he came to Harding Park, we started betting like he's never going to be able to play the Open Championship because it's always really cold. Anytime the U.S. Open's in a cold venue, he's out. You're like, Pebble can never do that. So you just start, all these things were already kind of checked off. Like, it's only Augusta when it's super hot and humid. And even he talked about, I think at like Harding Park, he would like keep an extra layer on to sweat and keep it loose. Like, he was already battling these uphill things. I just think about it from like a football scouting perspective. Obviously, football is a lot different than golf. When you like shatter your leg, you know, I think a lot of people would say unless you played, I mean, Alex is a decent example. Quarterback would be the one position where you don't have to move that much. Most other positions, if you were an older player, had a bad compound fracture, it could just kind of end your career. And a guy that's already had shattered knees, hip replacements, I mean, torn Achilles. But to me, it all goes to the back. Like, you just, I'm not trying to be like morbid and down here, but you just, in a weird way, I mean, it's not a weird way, you just kind of come to grips with, I don't know if I ever expect this guy to really play meaningful golf again, which shouldn't matter, right? Can he be around his kid who looks kind of like a shooting star, right? You know, we talk a lot about LeBron's kid, and it just feels like, I mean, Charlie was just, he's so young. I mean, he hasn't even hit puberty yet.
But I mean, whether he's a shooting star or not, right? It's just.
Yeah, being able to play. But I'm just saying, like, it kind of felt like Tiger was going to have this second act in a weird way with his kid. And it felt like he was having so much fun at that tournament. And you just hope he's going to be able moving around. It was already hard enough, right, with his back.
Right.
You start shattering your legs. Like he's not. I mean, he's had injuries. Like he is a middle linebacker, played in the 70s, right? Just alone, shattered knees, Achilles, back, like that. Most of these golfers are not. This was before today, which today, just look at that picture and then you just read. That's his injuries today were probably pretty jolting. You know, the impact. Fuck, you just look at the car, shattered leg.
Life.
Yeah, fuck.
When they need that, it tells you that it's bad. I mean, that you're stuck or that something. You know, I don't know. We'll get more details, but yeah, I hope he can. You know, I mean, you saw part of it too. Is we watched the Alex. I don't know if you saw this today, but probably like 20 minutes ago, Alex Smith. There were some quotes where he said basically most of the people in the Washington football organization didn't take him seriously. Like he felt like they were just letting him kind of come along. Just and it was kind
to
of
be
bullshit.
like be compassionate to him. But
Yeah,
not
but they
like,
didn't really believe in him, which
I didn't either, guy.
yeah, I don't blame them, and I
Yeah.
certainly don't blame them if they're like, hey, we don't want to be a part of some guy out here just, you know. So what he did is all the more impressive because he had to be the only guy that believed, and he had to force his way on the field. But again, we watched that thing play out, right? And that was compound fractures, but that he had an infection, but that thing got really, really bad.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's in your head too as you watch all this play out. But
Yeah.
we'll
I think
we'll wait if by the end of this podcast.
the thing
something else
I'd say
pops up,
the one
we'll get to
parallel
it.
with Alex, and Tiger's even on a higher level probably, is that when you're that famous, you have money, and when you're involved in the NFL, like he was going to have access to the best of the best. And Alex, as it went bad, you get a hold of people in the fucking Pentagon, and he got sent to the deal. Like Tiger just has access to the best of the best. But eventually, like that was just one major injury for Alex. It's not like Alex had 7 other things going on. Like Tiger's entire body, obviously Alex, it's different in football. He had to like protect himself. That's why I wrote Alex off. Thing in golf is if he can move, if he can swing, he can play, right? It's not like he's not safe if he can just rehab back, whether he wants to. But this is back to him talking to Nance. I just had the thought like it's gotta get to a point after he won that Masters, like, what am I doing all this rehab for? Remember Luck's statement was like, the rehab just drives you to a place of misery, right? The monotony of just, and this is what I think about like Clay. I can't imagine doing the rehab for the ACL and then boom, you got to start it all over again. It's most humans, like most of us. If I have I think a torn MCL and I've had it for a while, but I don't play basketball. I don't move laterally anymore, so I don't need to get it. But if I do ever get it, I will one day get it. You know, just the surgery is probably easy. The rehab I'll do will be probably half-assed. Like I'm not going hardcore every day like those guys. So it's easy to be like, I can do the next thing. Those guys are just taking it so serious, like a practice.
Yeah.
But you just do it every day. It's gotta think how many rehabs Tiger's been a part of. How that would mentally break me. I get mentally broken by fucking seeing some tweets from some people I hate.
How many rehabs? That means how many, the history of all the different medications he's had to be on. And, I mean, the number of people that don't believe. Now, look, you got people around you that are helping you, but the Alex Smith situation sounds pretty not disheartening, but discouraging. People are discouraging you. I can imagine there are people along the way, maybe not. I mean, a lot of people depend on Tiger financially, so maybe he didn't face much discouragement. But how about the other thing was watching, like, is Justin Thomas gonna? You saw some of that press conference.
Someone asked him, I saw right before we jumped on, someone asked him if he thought about withdrawing. I don't think he was happy about that question. He's like, I just found out 10 minutes ago. This is not about me.
I mean, he should say what he wants to say and move on.
Yeah.
They don't need to ask him about the greens. He can come back and do that press conference later if they want to. But I don't know, just
shitty deal.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out, John. But that's where it stands right now, and if something else happens by the end of the pod, we'll react to that.